The Trouble in Paradise podcast is intended for mature audiences. This means you will hear realistic adult language such as and go off. Audience discretion is advised.
What is knob polishing?
You're gonna make me say this. I am a neglected man.
I like to think that I look like a jack, even though my name's really Bob.
Does he have danglers or something?
Well, it's time to go do them lighthouse duties.
Sitting in the cheese at the old Walmart to cool off.
That should be the headline. Man tasered in the nuts after stealing beef.
Yeah, but you're not gonna sit in the cheese. You're not gonna sit in the cheese, and you're not gonna put ribeyes down your pants either.
House cleaning is secondary. So what is the Viagra triangle?
Possibly we aid in your digestion.
I don't know if his little hand is smaller than his little ears or what.
Aw, well maybe he has a syndrome.
Want to go check out my RV? It's parked right around the corner. Because I'm pretty sure that I saw some moose knuckle.
No.
There is absolutely some moose knuckle going on.
My swampy friend. What the hell is a swampy friend?
I know. So they're not going to get any scraping on their shaft.
Yes, I'm going to do a downward dog.
Okay, pretty lady. You had on those gosh darn sexy leather looking shorts.
Ladies and gentlemen, and assholes, gather around. It's time for another action-packed episode of
Trouble in Paradise.
Hi, I'm Nigel Kent.
And I'm Jazmine Starr.
And welcome to Trouble in Paradise.
Our show is a free-thinking, open-minded podcast discussing conspiracy theories, the paranormal, true crimes against humanity, plus our favorite only in Florida stories. The content presented by Trouble in Paradise contains speculation and conjecture and is not intended as educational material or advice. It is therefore not misinformation and does adhere to YouTube's community guidelines.
Yes, depending on which day of the week it is and which bot is in charge of censoring our program. And this might be the one. This might be the one that finally does it and pushes us over the edge, Jazmine Starr.
It very well could be, yes.
You selected a subject matter for us for this program, which is, well, I don't know. Could it be considered a little bit controversial when you really, really get down to the root of it?
Yeah, it's definitely something that I've known about since I was about 9 years old, and
well, then it's definitely controversial.
But there's a lot of mystery that surrounds this particular subject.
Yes, indeed. And welcome to everybody that's in the live chat on YouTube. Of course, if you're not streaming live right now, you can find our podcast in several other spots. Jazmine Starr, where can people get a hold of us or follow us if they'd like to?
Yeah, they can find us right here on our YouTube channel, Trouble in Paradise. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button and join in on the live chat. Instagram, you can find us at Trouble239. Twitter at Tipcast239. Email at trouble239.com. Our Patreon is Trouble239, and audio is available on all major podcatchers.
So, without further ado, I think this is a very, very well-read expert sitting to my right about the subject of the underground Pentagon, also known as Site R. And I understand, Jazmine Starr, that you grew up just a mile or so away from the infamously secretive underground Pentagon.
I did, yes. I moved to the area where this is when I was about 9 years old, and I can tell you that there were just it was a mystery. There were
even to the
lights.
locals.
There were lights at the top of a mountain, and that was about all you knew. I know a couple of my brother's friends that had ventured a little too close And there are signs that say if you get a little too close, you will be met with lethal force. And
I'm
they
gonna put
were
some signs like that around my house.
they were greeted by such people with some semi-automatic rifles. And
No kidding.
Yeah, it's very close to Camp David.
They didn't bring out the fully autos for him, huh? They just kept him with the ARs and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, it was enough to make young kids cry. So,
Site R, as I understand it, is one of many dozens or potentially hundreds of extremely well fortified underground bases, military bases around the world.
yeah. I mean, there are speculating, thousands of these bases in the U.S. alone. There's about 120. They're called deep underground military bases, known as DUMBs.
DUMBs,
And
like dumb with a B.
yeah, DUMBs.
DUMBs.
Deep underground military
Of
bases.
course. All right.
And they're situated under most major cities, U.S. Air Force bases, Navy bases, Army bases, FEMA military training camps,
Denver Airport.
and the Department of Homeland Security Control Center.
Let's see how many AI catchphrases we can say to get us censored tonight. I just said
Yeah.
Denver Airport, so I'm sure we're already flagged.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to repeat Denver Airport in a podcast on YouTube before they just pull the plug?
Well, they're connected in this tunnel system, which is vast. If you get into the whole underground if you get into the DUMBs and follow where they're located and everything, there's actual like an underground subway that can travel at Mach 1 speeds.
Across the continent.
Yes.
Insanity.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's pretty crazy.
You wanted to start the show with a video, which I think was video number 1, or the link that you sent me.
Yes.
Why don't you go ahead and without revealing too much, just go ahead and set this video up for everybody while I pull it up.
This is a video that is discussed by the mayor of Fairfield, Pennsylvania. And he also, there's a gentleman with the last name of Gaff that wrote a book on Raven Rock. That's the other name for Site R.
Raven Rock Mountain. Yeah.
It's in Blue Ridge, in the Blue Ridge Summit Mountain. It's known as Raven Rock Mountain. And Raven Rock has the name of Site R.
Okay, so without any further ado, let's check this out.
There's the mountains there, I'm sure. Most people have no idea what's in the mountain.
Deep in Adams County, near the Maryland border, towers one of the U.S. government's secret military facilities. The mountain that Fairfield Mayor Robert Stanley is talking about is Raven Rock, also known as Site R. The inside is a fully staffed bunker, believed by some to have more than 500,000 square feet of space, ready to act as an underground Pentagon in case of an attack on our country.
However, Raven Rock is shrouded in mystery. So few have been inside, and even fewer admit to doing so. Fox 43's Matt Maisel trying to address those rumors and to separate the fact from fiction.
In the heart of Adams County sits the tiny borough of Fairfield.
What we're all about is protecting our citizens.
A place which loves country and community.
Keep the taxes down, and we try to keep the security up.
Robert Stanley has been Fairfield's mayor for 12 years. He loves talking about his quaint home, but when topic turns to the mountain rising over town a few miles down the road,
I'm not going to bite.
Towering over Carroll Valley is the Rock. No, not that rock.
Welcome to the Rock.
Not that one either, although this rock might be harder for Sean Connery to break into. This is the Raven Rock Mountain Complex. And unlike those other two, this rock, known to locals simply as Site R, is shrouded in secrecy.
Everybody knows the mountains there, I'm sure. Most people have no idea what's in the mountain.
Mayor Stanley knows something about Raven Rock, he just won't say.
I had a very high security clearance in the Navy and NASA. And when I retired, that security clearance goes away.
And unless you have that top secret clearance, you'll never know. Barbed wire fences line the perimeter. My photographer Drew and I were standing across the street from Raven Rock's main gates in Liberty Township when 3 Pentagon-labeled SUVs pulled up just to ask what we were doing. We told them, they took down our information, and were on their way.
They certainly aren't going to advertise or take photographs of the facility and a schedule of when people go, because it's supposed to be secure.
Even neighbors like Jill Ott, who's lived up the street from Raven Rock's entrance for 56 years, only hear rumors.
I don't know whether it's true or not. There's supposed to be some kind of an underground thing like from Virginia all the way up where they could drive up if they wanted to.
So to separate fact from fiction when it comes to Raven Rock, we went straight to the source. No, not the president, this guy. Meet Garrett Graff. He literally wrote the book on Raven Rock.
The U.S. government's secret plan to save itself while the rest of us die. That's pretty heavy.
That's fundamentally what all of this is about, is ensuring that there is someone left in what's known as the National Command Authority who's able to launch a nuclear attack.
Garrett spent 4 years researching Raven Rock and other government bunkers across the country. A former writer at Politico and Washingtonian magazine, Garrett's done his homework.
These are not sort of backyard fallout shelters. These are hollowed out mountains with small cities built inside.
Large enough to fit an entire government after a nuclear disaster. According to a 1999 Freedom of Information Act report, Raven Rock is home to multiple defense operations, Navy, Air Force, intelligence. Standing 6 miles from the Camp David presidential retreat, Raven Rock has 2 reservoirs inside, one for personal use and one industrial. And thanks to $2 million funded annually in the federal budget, it's staffed 24/7 with a dining center, fitness center, snack bar, and fire department among other daily needs. Graff says the government's interest in Raven Rock peaked after the September 11th attacks. Deputy Secretary of Defense Paul Wolfowitz was evacuated here from the Pentagon. Today, Graff says nearly 900,000 square feet of office space can hold more than 3,000 government officials. No families.
There needs to be someone there all ready to take in charge in the event that something happens here in Washington to the White House.
The history of Raven Rock goes back to the late 1940s. The start of the Cold War had President Harry Truman wanting a bunker in case of a Soviet attack.
The locals who worked on that, and I don't know the years, but I think it was the late 40s, called the facility Harry's Hole.
Go back and look in the Gettysburg newspaper in 1948 as they begin construction. And everyone in town knows, and people are actually holding picnics there to watch the excavation and to feel the dynamite blasts go on.
Today in Adams County, life goes on in the shadow of the rock, mostly unaware to life inside.
Zero. Really, I know there's an antenna on a mountain.
We never know, whether something's happening or what it is.
Inside almost every conspiracy theory in this continuity world, there are kernels of truth. And so sort of figuring out, where that line is between fact and fiction, there's actually a lot more truth to some of these conspiracy theories than you might imagine.
The United States Silent Shield, right here in central Pennsylvania. In Adams County, Matt Maisel, Fox 43 News.
And full credit to Fox 43 in whatever locality that is, Raven Rock, whatever's local to Raven Rock, for the sake of the audio podcast, for providing that report. So the guy says there's a kernel of truth in every conspiracy theory. What say you, Jazmine Starr?
I absolutely agree with him. Based on some of the upcoming video that we're going to show, I think that there's some pretty compelling evidence that this isn't just some little bunker that's carved, into a mountain. There's
some incredible technology associated with it too.
And quite an infrastructure.
What surprised me most about the research that you provided is that if you were to ask me if we could even do something like this as a society technologically, I would probably say no. But then you're showing me some of the equipment, some photographs of some of the equipment that ostensibly was used to build this underground system. And it's like, wow, add that to the list of the shit that they're hiding from us, So, what do you think is what's your big takeaway about SIDAR? Like, what was the thing that surprised you most as you were doing your research on it?
I would have to say that it's essentially a facility that can hold a select group of people.
Oh, here we go. Rocking the boat. Which group would that be? Are we going to go straight there?
Well, we'll get into that in a later video, okay. But it can hold up to 5,000 people, as they say, no families.
That's enough, right?
They have, as part of their renovation project that they did during the 1980s under the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, for a $13.5 million contract. At that time, that would equate to about $35 million today. They added a new tunnel, underground reservoirs, additional cooling towers, structural bracing, a fire detection system, and sprinklers. They've continued to grow, have these grow rooms. And
so
we can
doing
go
subterranean agriculture.
Well, they're creating a sustainable underground environment where people can essentially survive for an extended period of time.
Like people like me and you?
Oh, no.
People like Brian Sovereignty there? Or Dot Connector? People like that?
No.
No?
These would be people that,
people that have the wealth to build stuff like this.
At the elite, if they're lucky. But
so this would be like the 1% of the 1%.
Essentially speaking.
In the event of some kind of international catastrophe or a big shift in the environment, something maybe like a nuclear.
It was originally designed as part of during the Cold War. It was designed to be a nuclear bunker.
Okay.
However, it was utilized during 9/11 and as early as our previous administration.
Interesting. So I think we're going to come back to how it was used on 9/11.
Right, that's correct.
Since they call it the underground Pentagon, and on 9/11, the actual Pentagon just got a little hole in it, right? Somebody threw some rocks at it or something.
Yeah.
All right. So this is the next video in your research, right?
Yes. Yeah. This is going to talk a little bit about some of the where some of the finances came from.
All right.
That money come from? It comes from a concealed black budget that garners 25% of the gross U.S. national product, and it currently consumes $1.25 trillion per year. Ever wonder what happened to the trillions in so-called losses after the bankster crooks fleeced the world's major financial institutions, then got rewarded with taxpayer bailouts? Ever wonder what happens to the billions that they pocket from Afghanistan's opium trade and from the legal and illegal drug money? In Tim Weiner's book, The Blank Check, The Pentagon's Black Budget, he writes, there are two governments in the United States today. One is visible, the other is invisible. The first is the government that citizens read about in their local newspapers, and the second is highly secretive, interlocking agencies that carry out hidden agendas. Philip Schneider, an ex-government structural engineer, was involved in building deep underground military bases around the United States. For the last 2 years of his life, he gave public lectures about government cover-ups, black budgets, UFOs, and aliens. On January 17th, 1996, Schneider was found dead in his apartment with piano wire wrapped around his neck. Some say he was tortured and murdered in a military-style execution. James Casbolt is another whistleblower. Casbolt was a former MI6 agent who worked in Black Ops in London between 1995 and 1999. He has connections to ex-intelligence people who worked in underground bases and on ET-related projects. There are vast numbers of children and adults disappearing around the world and ending up in these underground bases, says Casbolt. Why in hell are governments building a global underground network of cities with interconnecting tunnels? Why has Norway built a highly fortified and heavily guarded underground seed repository? Are they expecting a global disaster, an apocalypse, an engineered biological or nuclear war, or some other catastrophic depopulating event? Whistleblower George Green believes an imminent nuclear war is being orchestrated by the global elite to reduce the world's population to 500 million. He believes that underground cities are a retreat. If you confront government agencies about any of
roughly a mile deep, they are basic whole cities hollowed out underground. There are somewhere between 2 and 2/3 cubic miles and 4 1/4 cubic miles hollowed out underground. You might ask how this is done. Well, right now they have laser drilling machines that can drill a tunnel 7 miles in one day. Obviously, we the public don't know how it's implemented. The black projects, as we know them, sidestep Congress, which is illegal. Right now, the New World Order is depending upon these bases, and if I'd known it was the New World Order involved, I wouldn't have had anything to do with them. I was lied to rather extensively.
Wow. So, Philip, that guy speaking was found dead in his apartment. Said to be a suicide at first, but would, upon further investigation, appear to be murdered by strangulation using a rubber hose wrapped tightly, 3 times around his neck.
Right. And the previous person had been murdered with 3 piano wires wrapped tightly around his neck.
So both by strangling.
Yes. And both by the number 3.
So he just said the audio towards the end of that video wasn't particularly great, and I don't know who to credit on that video. That seems to be a mashup video. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it possibly came over from one of the tubes competing.
That would be correct.
Okay. So, but he said that they can drill out 7 miles in a day of tunnels?
Yes.
Of what height? Of what diameter? Because the machine they showed in that screen grab looked like it was 30 or 40 feet tall.
Right. I believe I sent you a picture of U.S. Air Force. They're called bullet moles, is what battle moles.
Battle mole.
That they used to carve through the rock, but then they realized that they needed to have a machine that had a higher heat, and they developed these laser battle moles. And
it looks like this here. This is this appears to be about 2.5 to 3 stories tall, maybe 4 stories tall.
Right. If you compare the gentlemen that are standing beside it, it's definitely
big.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so this, to me, this resembles like a giant locomotive, but it has I guess one end of it looks like a circle that seems to be loaded up with a whole bunch of equipment that looks like it's shooting forward towards the front of it. Mm-hmm. Or is this the drilling device that you think he's referring to?
I think possibly so. But if you go through some of the other images, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Before you play any of the videos.
So these are pictures that were taken in
Site R.
In Site R. Okay. This one's pretty startling. This is a picture of a large seafaring vessel. And it appears to have the marking K-24 on it. And it is sitting in a dry dock in a giant cavernous underground cavity.
Correct.
And if this is from Site R, this is presumably...
according to the dimensions of Site R, and like I said, there's 120 bases, so it's kind of hard to say exactly which facility, if this did indeed come from Site R, but this is what these DUMs are housing inside, just part of what they're housing inside.
How do you get a seafaring vessel, a big giant boat, out from underneath of a mountain out to sea? That's
Well,
kind of interesting.
Site R, level 27, is 41 feet below surface level and 89 feet below sea level.
So, and that's very high elevation to begin with. So, here in Florida, where we sit in our super secret, top secret studio here in Naples, Florida, we are exactly 8 feet above sea level. Which, so you're saying that not only were they beneath the mountain, but they were below sea level beneath the mountain.
Yes, 89 feet below sea level.
So that's a pretty deep basement.
Right.
And that the regular elevation, I don't know what the height of that mountain is, but even if you go to a non-elevated city up north, like I think Cleveland, Ohio sits at like 800 feet or something like that.
I don't know the specific elevation. It's in Blue Ridge Summit, which is where Raven Rock is. It's not a big, by standards of mountains, when you look at Colorado, it would be it's a molehill.
Well, there is the Google map of Raven Rock Mountain, and I bet you we can find out how tall it is with a little bit of work, because that's probably available on Wikipedia or right there in maps. But back to the photos. Ominous thunder in the background. It hasn't rained all week, and then we're doing a podcast and it starts storming.
Yes, now we get the thunder rolling.
So what is this here? What are these tubes at the top of this?
Okay, so those tubes, when I had mentioned how the Army Corps of Engineers had gone in, that was part of their renovation in adding some new air ventilation and everything throughout. Okay. So it's highly sustainable for being in for a prolonged period of time. They have these the yellow or the ventilation tubing that runs throughout the tunnel system.
So this looks pretty primitive compared to the picture with the seagoing vessel parked in dry dock. This looks like something. This looks like an up north basement, except really big. This one doesn't look super impressive.
Well,
where's the snack bar that the guy in the video mentioned here?
Well, I didn't have time to get a picture of the command center, but it looks exactly like something you would expect to see in the Pentagon. Okay, is what the command center looks like.
I wonder, is the snack bar up to par?
They have a bar even.
A bar? I guess
bar.
If you're stuck underground after the end of the world.
Yeah, well, that's what somebody had joked about is, if you were in the apocalypse, that they would definitely need to have a bar.
What is this? This looks like a...
Okay, so that is...
this looks like a train track.
Yes, that's part of the railway system that connects all these different tunnels, and also is interconnecting all of these different bases.
Okay, so these tunnels not only go throughout Site R, but then they also connect to other DUMs around the country?
Yes, and like I said, they look very much like a subway. The train cars, and they have the ability to travel 1,500 miles per hour.
That is really interesting. So they must be using pneumatics in order to propel these cars. Otherwise, you'd have a crazy aerodynamic problem inside tubes that small. That's faster than the speed of sound. You said 1,500 miles an hour?
Yeah, they can travel at Mach 1.
That's higher than Mach 1. That's like Mach 2.
Yeah.
Because I think sound travels at like 700 feet per second or something like that. At any rate, yeah, interesting. So the proposition here is that they can travel between bases at twice the speed of sound in trains that are underground in tubes.
Yep.
Okay, Jazmine Star, you are really pushing the envelope on this one.
Well, and one of the things that really creeped me out about well, there were several things about the last video that were extremely disturbing. Was the missing persons and children aspect.
Would you like to move on to the next video, or do you want to keep looking at these photos from Side R?
I think probably in the best interest of trying to keep our channel, we'll look at the next photo.
Okay. Here we go. Let's at least keep it till the end of the episode, because I have a feeling we're probably going to go there. So here's an excavated...
This may be strike 3 tonight, folks. We may be on a different platform after tonight.
They may just skip everything and call the game. I mean, this is a photo of a excavated... this looks like a regular dock of a boat floating, but it looks like this is sunlit. This appears to be... Don't you think this looks like natural light here in this one?
Yep. And one of the videos that we're going to get to shortly it shows the different entrances and everything. There's multiple entry points into the mountain.
All right. Then we have a really, really sophisticated, very large boat dock with multiple boats docked in a mountain cavern that apparently connects to a waterway of some kind. And this is the picture that you alluded to at the beginning of this drilling device that apparently was used to drill out all of these underground caverns. And what's this one, Jasmine Star?
That is just an example of what one of the tunnel entrances look like from the outside.
Okay. So this here, the entrance to this tunnel seems to be, 80 to 90 feet, if not more, beneath the embankment. Because look, there's a building right here. That's got to be between 12 and 20 feet tall.
Well, it is so bizarre whenever you see something like this, and like the first video that we showed where it's all wooded and everything. Literally, it's on Route 116, 16 and 116. If you're there and you sit at the stop sign, you can look right up on the opposite side of the road, and you see Raven Rock, and all you see is the essentially the very peak of it, which is the comm tower that has the bright lights up there. That's it. That's all you see. Everything else is a secret.
Dot Connector says Snowpiercer lives. Have you ever seen that movie, Snowpiercer?
No, I haven't.
It's about people who are stuck on this train and they can't stop going. The train is like going around the world over and over and over, and they can't stop going. And like the proletariat is all at the back of the train. And then as you get closer and closer to the front of the train, you have these increasingly wealthy classes until you get all the way to the locomotive or the engine at the front. And I'm not going to tell you what happens there. It's a really out there dystopian sci-fi movie. Pretty cool stuff.
Being stuck on a train it doesn't sound...
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, I was going to say, that's as bad as being on an airplane for me.
It was, I think they turned it into, I want to say they turned it into like a Netstream series or a Netflix series or something like that too.
Yeah.
At any rate, yeah, I don't know if I'd rather be stuck on a train than a plane. But, it's a huge preference of mine.
Yeah. I don't know, really.
Would you rather be stuck on a plane, a train, a boat, a float?
A boat.
Really?
Yeah. I'm at peace on the water.
What if it's choppy seas?
I'm at peace.
So choppy seas is better than an airplane in a bad thunderstorm?
Hell yeah.
Okay. I would prefer to be stuck walking, I think.
You didn't give me that choice.
Oh, all right. That's true. Okay, so let's take a look at the next video.
Yep.
In your...
and we can roll both sequences together in the next two videos.
Okay. Let's pull up our window capture and run this next video here. If I can find it. All right, so we're on video 4, correct? There's video 3. Who's this guy?
He's another podcaster.
Okay.
The origins of
That's. Does he have a name?
Sorry.
No. All right. Here's a podcaster.
plan came out of the ashes of World War II, but have undergone numerous changes since. It now includes a formal line of succession should anything happen to the president, as well as a detailed plan of where various governmental and military staff should be taken. The one and only time this plan has been enacted came immediately after the attacks on 9/11, when Vice President Dick Cheney was reported to have been whisked away to Pennsylvania and into the Raven Rock mountain complex. The origins of such a plan.
Okay. So on 9/11, they say that Site R is the underground Pentagon, right?
Right. Now, if you remember video 1
From tonight.
Yep. They discussed the senator, I cannot think of his name now, but that there was a senator that was brought to
Yeah, like
Site R.
I think he was the Assistant Secretary of Defense.
Okay.
So under Rumsfeld.
All right.
And I forget his name too, but yes, yeah.
So he was brought there, and Dick Cheney.
All right. So Vice President Cheney.
Yep. So here was a previously dusty old mothball trap of a facility.
Sure.
Running, but a skeleton crew. Yeah. And suddenly is enacted in a state of emergency on 9/11, where Dick Cheney was brought while President Bush was on Air Force One.
So it would be interesting to know the actual chronology of events there in terms of when Cheney was moved to Site R.
Exactly.
Because
now, and here's where it could be so iffy. It's like, was he already there before?
Mm-hmm. We're just winking at each other.
Yeah. Or knowing how fast these underground systems can move, he could have easily gotten there. The trip from D.C. to Site R.
So you think that the metro has a stop that goes to Site R, and what do you have to say a certain password in order to get into these special tubes on the metro, or?
No, these are known to be connecting from.
So we're not talking about Union Station.
No.
We're talking about some other secret place in Washington D.C. where they can get in one of these special space trains and go directly to
anywhere from Virginia, which my guess is going to be the newly taken over NATO facility in Aberdeen.
Thank you, Orwell Huxley, for tipping us off to that one.
And I mean, that would be the base whenever they talk about these DUMBs being underneath of these bases.
Mm-hmm.
Aberdeen would be the location that I would suspect in Virginia that would be.
Well, was Cheney in D.C. on 9/11?
Oh, who knows where he was?
Something that we should probably dig into. I guess he ended up at Site R.
But he ended up at Site R regardless.
So, but they've
we'll
called
never
Site
know
R
what
the
that
underground
timeline
Pentagon, and we all know kind of what happened to the actual Pentagon on 9/11. It was hit by a not airplane, because there's a video of it not getting hit by an airplane.
Right.
There's actually probably hundreds of videos of it not getting hit by
Right.
an airplane, but we've only seen
where they've had to subpoena, like the hotel that had to subpoena their video footage.
We want our security video back, you assholes.
Right, because they confiscated that immediately.
So, but there are two videos that exist that show the Pentagon not getting hit by an airplane, and so now the underground Pentagon has to be invoked by the Bush 43 administration.
Yes.
So that they can move. Now, there's
Safely.
this whole other theory about the suspension of constitutional government during times of war.
Yep.
Where
well, if they're what they do is they're hiding any top government officials. I mean, this is where they could go to another dumb, But essentially, this has the command center and everything. There's supposedly multiple command centers where the launch codes can be given if need be in, a total...
In a military war.
Right.
So, but, obviously there's VIPs that exist that are going to use these things that are not necessarily military people. They're just so high up in the power structure.
Well, there's a supposed tour of SIDAR that people can take if they have White House clearance, and they have to have clearance, I forgot, from somewhere else.
Yeah, you have to have some kind of secret clearance.
Yeah, but I mean, they have to go through it, but they can actually go and tour SIDAR and get to see the snack bar and the...
I want to see that snack bar. I want to find out what
hall.
they consider. What is a snack that's going to last through a nuclear war? Like, what do they have?
They're growing fresh produce. I mean, they have an entire huge room where they're growing, like it's like a rice field where they're growing rice.
They don't have
right
like
now.
caramellos or something like that at the snack bar, and some Fritos, some Precious Fritos at the snack bar. Where is Precious Frito? He needs to get on the live chat.
I know.
All right, let's take a look at the next video here. This is some podcaster.
I'm
The
sorry.
Raven Rock Mountain was identified sometime in 1950. And the following year, on the 23rd of January, the federal government used a declaration of taking, which I guess is a kind of way of saying I'm taking your lands. And they did it to officially seize 280 acres that they required.
All right, so this is a super short clip, but just so people can kind of see here.
This is talking about how the government acquired this land, right?
Right. But they acquired the mountains, 280 acres. But when you look at the layout, Carroll Valley is essentially Fairfield, Pennsylvania. It's about 9 miles south of Gettysburg, for those of you that don't know the location. Nigel is pulling up the Google map of it here.
Yep, just so you can kind of see what she's talking about. This is right on the border between Pennsylvania and Maryland.
Right. So if you hung a left at the stop sign, then you would go into Emmitsburg, Maryland. So it's within miles of the Mason-Dixon line.
So there's Emmitsburg on the map.
Right. So yeah.
So this is not exactly, you don't have to really drive far to get to Raven Rock Mountain. I mean, you're what, 20 minutes, 30 minutes out of a pretty heavily populated town?
Okay, so, well, to give you an example, where I lived, which was obviously close to SIDAR, it would be approximately 35-minute drive in order to get to Frederick, Maryland, which is where Fort Detrick is.
Okay.
So you've got another base close by, 6 miles to Camp David.
So do you think there's a tube from Fort Detrick to Camp David to SIDAR?
I would absolutely believe it. I mean, if we really get into Fort Detrick, is a completely different discussion in itself. But I mean, they're doing,
biological research at Fort Detrick. Yeah, that is a different
research
discussion.
warfare, however you want to put it.
Are we not allowed to say the COVID word or the VAXX word on the show
Well,
tonight?
I just know that when I went to college, there was a soldier that I was friends with and had been on site there, and she was involved with the rhesus monkeys and everything. So there's quite a bit of interesting testing that goes on there too.
Okay, so everybody basically stay away from wherever Jazmine grew up. It's really fucked up. But it does.
I got a lot of history I can give you on it.
It does produce wonderful people. Okay, so in this video, he's talking about how the government acquired the land. So I'm gonna play it.
Yeah.
1950. And the following year, on the 23rd of January, the federal government used a declaration of taking, which I guess is a kind of way of saying I'm taking your lands. And they did it to officially seize 280 acres that they required. The initial cost estimate for construction was set at $35 million, which is about $350 million today. And
which is nothing because Brown Stadium cost $375 million to construct 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's just the budget that they show you on the surface, right?
Right. And as the other video said, there's the one budget and then there's the black budget.
Yeah. You know, do you have a black budget? Like when you look at your pocketbook, do you sort of have a black budget?
I got a bug out bag.
A little bit of black budget cash in the bug out bag. That's probably not a bad idea. Okay, so then we have
moving
on to video number 5, which is a video of a podcaster, which I now can characterize as bald and British. Here we go, from the top.
Now, this all changed dramatically on September the 11th, 2001. With confusion mounting over what happened and the extent of the attack, George W. Bush triggered the continuation of government plan for the first time in the nation's history. While the president himself was quickly ushered onto Air Force One, his vice president, Dick Cheney, was transported to the RRMC, where he spent the night along with other officials who had the site in Pennsylvania as their designated location. The following day, with the dust now settling, officials made their way back to Washington, D.C. to continue the analysis of what exactly had happened. Unsurprisingly, the RRMC was rapidly brought out of its mothballed state, and a series of expansions and modernizations took place, as well as it reverting to its 24-hour mode of operation.
Yeah, well, that's what the official narrative is, right? I mean, this thing was probably ready to go the whole time.
Oh, absolutely. It was ready to go. I mean, it was... I lived there for, well, geez.
Let's just, without giving away any details about your age.
Yeah. I lived there several years, and I can tell you that that place was always lit up like Christmas.
And you, this was during the 90s, 80s?
90s.
And how old were you during the 90s, Jazmine Star?
And 80s.
And 80s.
I said I moved to that area when I was 9.
So, do you think that this subject is a magnet for censorship? Do you think that people like this British guy that kind of looks like a young Phil Collins with a better beard is going to catch flack because of the fact that he talked about things that are pretty much already well known? Because this video clearly isn't from YouTube. This has got to be from one of their competitors, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Do you think there's a reason for that? Why isn't it on YouTube?
Well, because when you start to talk about things like certain, well, his in particular, I don't really know why he's necessarily, aside from the 9/11 connection with certain cabinet officials or the vice president.
Well, I don't even know that is particularly secret. I think that, the activation of the...
I really think the damning video is the one about the budget and the people, children that are missing, and the 2 murders that were associated with people who had spoken up about this.
Yes, whistleblowers getting murdered and going missing is a huge deal.
Especially after they used the NWO.
And that's not just Site R. That's every time there's a big controversial subject where somebody from the elite is involved, or the elite in general is involved. People get killed. People go missing, and there are always people who are well informed.
Right.
It goes
For
back to 9/11.
anybody watching, if you get a location drop from me.
Yeah. Yep.
Yep.
So
you'll know. You'll know. McAfee's statement will apply to me.
Yeah, I am not suicidal.
Right, exactly.
It's interesting though, because murder and people getting Epsteined and McAfee'd and so forth is like kind of like the ultimate form of censorship.
Right.
If they can't get these people to shut up,
Yeah.
because that they've tried other means.
Right.
I mean, look at Rose McGowan. Not to completely go off the rails here, but she's in Mexico hiding right now. Because I think she has a better idea maybe than we do about what she's up against. And it's not just censorship of her communication. It's censorship of her movement. It's censorship of her actual liberty.
Well, I mean, she's being stalked right now.
Yeah, she's being harassed in a major way.
Yeah, and it's I have my own personal feeling about that, but I'll reserve that
for our next episode.
On Rose McGowan,
perhaps. That can probably come up. We are actually going to have a guest host on our next episode. 2 weeks from tonight, Josh Denny.
Yep, October 17th.
Libertarian West Coast comedian extraordinaire Josh Denny will be joining us for the full episode. And if you haven't, check out his podcast. It's called Jankum. Jankum changed my life. And it's pretty much a celebrity shit talk show, kind of like Joe Rogan. Same basic formula, although Josh is a lot less polished and smooth. He says what's on his mind, and he doesn't censor himself the way Joe Rogan does. So Josh Denny, Jankum. He also appeared on my podcast, Big Tech Watchdog, for a couple episodes a little while back. So we're fans of Josh, and we wish him all the success that he can get. But I think this is probably going to be his first time on an actual conspiracy theory show.
Yep.
We told him that, and he was like,
he's down for it.
He's down for it. So this is the guy who was a Food Network host for 4 years and got erased from Food Network for being pro-life. Okay. And he made a very coarse joke about when Texas went to put a 6-week limit on abortions. He basically said only the whores know that they're pregnant. Only the whores take 6 weeks to realize that they're pregnant or something like that. And that got him completely banned from Food Network, and they made such a big deal out of it and stuff. Anyway, if you like that kind of humor and if you're into people speaking their minds, Josh will be with us next time through. And we are going to probably cover a lot of these subjects like underground bases. And I think we have one more video to share about SITE-R.
Yeah, so people thought that essentially it went into this non-use mode as of September 11th, or up leading to September 11th.
Like SITE-R was just sort of in like low power mode.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which I believe to a degree, but I never believe that they completely scaled back and shut down their comm center. I always believe it's fully staffed and everything as it should be. If we have these kind of facilities at our disposal, we should be using them to protect our country. And so I don't think any of that went away. But they downplayed it to say, that they only activate it during these times of crisis. And I happened to come across another video today.
Does that mean that everybody gets called in to work? Like, hey, we're having a crisis. You got to come to the site. And they're like, which one? Like, SITE-R. And I'm like, fuck, SITE-R. That's like 50 miles away. Is it that
Don't
kind
worry,
of a
I'll
deal?
get you there in 10 minutes.
Yeah, here, let me get on,
the rail.
let me get on my underground rail car.
Yeah.
But obviously that's not the way it went down. This thing had to have been just fully staffed all the time.
Yeah, I mean, for them to have, you've got people that are overseeing the water quality, the air quality,
Yeah, you've got agricultural people, you've got industrial engineers, you've got plumbers, you've got electricians.
The one picture in the one video shows the semi trucks that are bringing in food supplies. So they're continually bringing in food stocks and everything. It's not just
so in
like,
that respect,
we
it's
had
like any military base in that regard.
we had a delivery. It's it's an ongoing stockpiling as well, in order to keep this operational and also very much accessible in the event that it needs to be used by the Elite 5,000.
Ooh, the Elite 5,000. All right. Play it.
Play it.
I see COVID-19 rollbacks begin. So the first article is Trump activates war fortress Raven Rock, gives US Army control of doomsday planes. A report discussing the highly classified of special importance assessment of President Donald Trump grimly notes that the world's highest profile coronavirus patient, first expected to stay in the hospital for the next few days, is now said to be suffering shortness of breath and a fever, thus creating a major national security crisis, as there are massive and highly unique strategic implications of this situation, the likes of which America hasn't experienced before, which is why intense focus around the globe is being centered on the implications of two intelligence-related articles. It needs to be asked, is President Trump safe from the military deep state at Walter Reed Hospital? And has World War III begun? The entry of superpowers almost certain in an ongoing Azerbaijan-Armenia war? The answer to both of which can be found in the fact that the White House is not a wartime headquarters due to its being a first strike strategic target, and in the days leading up to President Trump making the shock announcement of his being infected with the coronavirus, saw this reality being addressed. That began earlier last week with the stunning historic announcement that the US Army and US Air Force had merged together into a single wartime fighting force. That now sees the Army's Project Convergent Artificial Intelligence System linking to the Air Force and the Space Force's Artificial Intelligence System called the Advanced Battlefield Management System, and was followed by the US Army taking control of what are known as the Doomsday Planes and launching them into flight shortly before President Trump made his announcement. That's now been joined by the US Army announcing a few hours ago that it has discontinued its rapid equipping force stood up during the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan to get urgently...
So a whole lot of shit happened when President Trump said that he was COVID positive and apparently went to Site R, or readied Site R in the event that he and or others would need to go there.
That's correct.
It's amazing to me how good these Brits are at deciphering this kind of stuff on their podcasts. And the only thing people are worried about in the United States is who won the fucking football game.
Yeah.
You know, the Browns won today, by the way. Just throwing that out there. Yeah, they're 3-1.
Congratulations.
Yeah. So, what? I mean, as somebody who lived near Site R for a long time, like, was it as kind of a cynical attitude that you had about it growing up? Like, that's just a military base. Like, did you drive any sense of security by virtue of it being so close?
No, not at all. I mean, I remember thinking that if, the shit were going to hit the fan, it's like we were kind of screwed in where we were.
Mm-hmm.
It was a really interesting area to grow up in. You had this. We weren't far from Fort Detrick, obviously. A little bit further, we'd be in D.C., so you had a lot of that influence within about an hour and 15 minutes from where I was. And then you had in another area of Blue Ridge Summit, there's I would love to know, because there was an abandoned military base there. that ran on a skeleton crew. You could drive through there if you're careful.
They kept it running for some reason, though.
Right. I wouldn't be surprised at all if it becomes a camp.
Okay. So let me ask you this.
Yeah.
Why do you think that the people who operate these underground bases, and I'm just going to call them the people who operate them, because I know it's the military, but I feel like there's two military paradigms, right? There's the good guys who defend our freedoms and defend our Constitution,
right?
And then there's the bad guys in the military who are essentially pawns of a greater power that, for some reason, has control over the military, where we, the sovereigns, should and don't.
Right.
Do you think that those people who control these bases, and for whom these bases were ostensibly built, are interested in finding out what the common people know about those bases, or finding out what the common people know about how to build bases like the ones that they built 50 and 60 years ago, to kind of figure out if the people are catching up to their ideas or not?
I think the information still continues to be suppressed. There's definitely, whenever I was doing my research, what I was able to find on this platform versus other platforms is definitely an area of censorship. So I do believe that this is an area that they don't want people still to know.
And it's not just because military secrets, national security, and yada yada. It's actually about suppressing people's access to something that their effort and time and income was used to build.
I mean, just in that, and to revert back to that very first video, the newscaster and his crew, they were met immediately by 3 Pentagon police vehicles that took their information. They're asking them what they're doing there. I know my brother's friends.
Well, that's for intimidation.
Right. Well,
I mean, that's half the things that cops do. They Mirandize you before they arrest you and stuff. Like, there's just so many things they do.
They're kids. They're hiking through the woods, and they just happen to hike in the wrong direction and everything. And they were met by exactly what it says. You will be met by lethal force.
Well, I do think that the elite are trying to figure out how much armchair scientists know about underground base building, because they have actually instigated something called the SubT challenge, or the Subterranean challenge, which is sponsored by one of your favorite organizations, DARPA, or as I prefer to call it, DARPA. Mm-hmm. Now, DARPA has created a crowdsourcing initiative where they're actually putting out millions of dollars in prize money to various teams of scientists from around the world to see who can design the most well-functioning underground base, or contribute the most well-functioning technologies to the construction of underground bases. So this is if you go to subtchallenge.com, this is a DARPA-sponsored crowdsourcing mechanism. It says, complex underground settings present significant challenges for military and civilian first responders. The hazards vary drastically across domains that can enter or degrade and change over time, and are often too high risk for personnel to enter. The DARPA Subterranean or SubT challenge seeks novel approaches to rapidly map, navigate, and search underground environments during time-sensitive combat operations or disaster response scenarios. It's almost like they're saying, tell us what you know about our underground bases.
It's a very exciting experience. So many good teams from all around the world.
This is a way to be challenged and to learn things. Are we up to the task? Can we use our existing technology, our existing expertise?
A lot of the world is going to end up having these fleets of robots. It's
very exciting to see all these various and different technologies that are state of the art.
The SubT challenge for us represents everything that relates to how we can make robots to be resilient in extreme conditions.
This is kind of a step up for us, even bigger of a challenge than we faced so far.
It sells to all robotics, make sure that your robots are able to do their mission. This is absolutely difficult at the moment.
So this is it's basically a drone competition for people who are trying to navigate subterranean environments, aka underground bases. But this is just the robotics portion of it that we're looking at here. If you go to SubT,
you know what's interesting about that is the LA warehouse fire in Carson at Prologis had a lab that was they dealt with some of this technology
with underground search and rescue technology.
I don't know necessarily if it was underground search and rescue technology, but they were heavily involved. And if you go into the Prologis website and look under their lab and look at some of the things that they were actually working on with robotics and stuff like that, it's kind of interesting because one of their top 10 clients was the U.S. government.
Of course. I mean, the U.S. government is the biggest buyer of that kind of stuff probably in the world. So what my take on the subterranean challenge here is that DARPA, as an instigating operative of the 1% of the 1%, right, as an organization that is at the disposal of those actually in control, DARPA
they
here,
have their hands in so much.
Well, they're acting as an intelligence outfit. They're trying to crowdsource intelligence about how underground bases work. In other words, they're saying, hey, we've got all these bases. Now we're going to do this little thing where we try to figure out how much you know about them. We're going to do this thing where we give away millions of dollars to the amateur scientists and amateur, subterranean engineers in order to find out who has the best ideas. In other words, who's got the closest to what we've already accomplished.
And then we'll wrap their throats with piano wires or
offer them a scholarship or offer them a deal with the devil or whatever it is,
Be part of the 5,000.
Be part of the 5,000. You too can be part of the 5,000 that are safely snug as a bug in a rug at Site R.
Yes.
Yes.
Actually, you know what? On that little the video about, or actually it was an article on the tour that you could take.
I couldn't take it.
It said that...
that's what you're talking about is a parody website. That's a parody. The one that has Barack Obama on it and stuff like that.
No.
You know which one I'm talking about? There's this website where it's like this whole article about how Barack Obama took a tour of Site R. The whole thing is like one big joke, though.
Yeah.
So there's no way you and I could ever take a tour of Site R.
There is an actual way to access it, but it takes a lot of.
You got to be somewhat on the inside, right?
Right. I watched a video today that had. I won't speak of their ethnicity, but I did find it interesting that they were taking a tour of the facility.
Were they, when you say ethnicity, are you talking about their nationality? Like they were Russian?
No.
They were Chinese?
Perhaps.
Okay. All right. So while Jazmine Star does her best not to get us conked off of YouTube again.
I think it already happened. I think we've used too many TLAs tonight.
We mentioned all the TLAs, checked off all the boxes for the censors.
Yeah.
There's actual humans at YouTube watching our podcast now, getting ready to just...
Well, it's like...
The FBI is probably on their way.
Well, I mean, it happens all the time. We had they picked up the thumbnail. Like they picked up the thumbnail for an episode.
It was episode 52.
That had the dollar bill. And then we had like an Illuminati link.
Yeah.
Like a Wikipedia
because we used an image of a
Illuminati.
dollar bill in our podcast, they added a link to a Wikipedia article about the Illuminati.
Yeah.
Like,
they
fucking
since
dumbasses.
removed it. But at the very beginning, when the episode first came out, and you see it, you're like, "What the hell is this? What the hell is this wiki link on here for?"
No, they removed it later.
Right,
They removed it later.
But the initial like release, it's like, how in the hell did this get here? Because that's something that we never talked about.
Yep. So coming up on Trouble in Paradise, 2 weeks from tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern, October 17th, we will be hanging out with Josh Denny for at least an hour or so. You can catch me on my podcast, Big Tech Watchdog, which is a anti-censorship, pro-freedom of speech podcast, which you can find on all the major podcatchers. And as Jazmine Star types into the live chat, I have to remind you that this show is live every other Sunday on YouTube at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So we try to participate as much as we can in the live chat. Thank you for everybody that has joined in tonight.
Thank you guys so much.
Those that have chatted and those that have not. Jazmine Star, how does everybody get a hold of you?
To get a hold of me, you can find me on Twitter at JazmineStar239. That's JazmineStarR239. And I'm also available on Instagram at star_light_readings.
All right. And how do people get a hold of us?
To get a hold of us, right here on YouTube, Trouble in Paradise. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. That way you get notifications when we go live. Instagram at Trouble239, Twitter at Tipcast239, email trouble@trouble239.com. Patreon is Trouble239, and we're available on all major podcasters.
And definitely email us if you've got something you want to talk about. All emails are treated anonymously. Trouble@Trouble239, as you said. Trouble@Trouble239.com.
Nigel, how do they get a hold of you, the Big Tech Watchdog?
Nigel Kent 239 on Twitter is pretty much the only place. Big Tech Watchdog is on all the major podcatchers. So check that out. I don't have my guest schedule ready to share just yet, but if you're interested in freedom of speech, nice, Brian. We are in Naples, Florida, not giving out the zip code, but maybe we'll have to go do a show at Sanibel sometime. Hope everybody has a wonderful evening. And Jazmine Star, is there anything that you'd like to share with our audience before we sign off?
I just think stay out of trouble.
Stay out of trouble.